Nebraska just wrapped up a much needed bye week, and man, oh man, over these past couple hours, I've learned a bunch of inside nuggets, everything that's happened in practice over these past couple days, a huge change coming to the offense versus Penn State, a couple breakout players, what Lateef has been doing recently, whether or not he can replicate his performance, we'll talk about it, the Emmett Johnson HEISMAN campaign, a couple rumors right now with the program, where the Huskers go from here, and everything else you need to know. So really quick, this is a Loaded Nuggets episode. I'm fired up. If you were to hit that like button, and also we're getting so close to 15,000 subscribers, and for good reason. This is the only channel on YouTube that posts daily content talking your favorite team, talking Nebraska, and we are not slowing down anytime soon. It's your turn to join the family. It's no rare. Take 2 seconds. Help us hit 15K. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. Nebraska just wrapped up a much-needed bye week going into our must-win game versus Penn State, our rivalry matchup versus Iowa, big-time bowl game likely against an SEC opponent, and we learned a lot of practice nuggets, inside info, but I want to get things started with, in my opinion, the biggest storyline that we learned. The response of this football team, not only going into Penn State, but going into Iowa, going into the bowl game, because I told you guys before the UCLA ball game, not only did Nebraska have to win, we had to win big, because there have been a lot of distractions all season long with earlier in the year, Matt Rhule potentially going to Penn State, with Dylan Raiola going down due to injury. There was a lot of concern nationally whether or not Nebraska was actually going to win another game with the backup quarterback. No pundit on ESPN, CBS, nobody believed in us. We were underdogs going to UCLA, so it was imperative not only to win, but to win big. And that's exactly what we did. Emmett Johnson has his best game of the year. He's officially in the Heisman race. Lateef, one of the greatest Nebraska quarterback debuts in the history of this program. He was efficient as ever. The defense, they had their highs, they had their lows, but at the end of the day, Nebraska won, and it was only by 7 points, but it was our best game of the season from, offense, defense, and special teams, all three phases standpoint. But I want to make this very clear. The reason why I bring that up is because while it was a great game, it gave us confidence going to the bye week, it gave us confidence going into Penn State. We've done a lot of reflection over these past couple of days. And I can tell you right now for a fact, nobody within Nebraska's team, roster, coaching staff, even in the fan base, nobody is satisfied, because we've done reflection on the past, what we've done so far this year, going back to the Michigan game, going back to the Minnesota game, going back to the USC game. Right now, we're at 7-3, which is a great record. It's very much improved, but we know that we've had missed opportunity after missed opportunity. Okay, we should have been a playoff team, at least down the stretch. We should have had an opportunity, to potentially go 10-2, potentially go 11-1 with this easy of a schedule. Okay, this is the easiest schedule to the Big Ten, and we squandered it. And this Nebraska football team, they know it. The coaching staff, they know it. They've been very hard on themselves because of that. So they understand that while we cannot change the past, we have to learn from it. We can change the future, and we can attack the next day harder. So Nebraska understood that they missed an opportunity this year. Okay, you look nationally right now, there might be a 9-3 team that makes the playoffs. It's not going to be Nebraska, but there might be a 9-3 team that makes it, because, again, it's that wide open. Okay, Nebraska could have made it if they went 10-2, but they missed an opportunity. But we know that because of that, we're going to go hard to end the season. We're going to give our best foot forward going into Penn State, going into Iowa, and we're going to go all out. So that's the mindset of this team. If you expect Nebraska to go out there and be, super aggressive for no reason and to play, like we have nothing to lose, that's not the case. We have everything to lose, because if you end, let's say 7-5 compared to 9-3, that's a huge difference. That's a huge change. It impacts the boosters, it impacts recruiting, it impacts the transfer portal. We have to win as many games as possible. We can't lose a single one. We can't lose against Iowa, can't lose against Penn State, and the coaching staff, they're going to do exactly that. They're going to go all out in order to win. I want to talk about Lateef, because I continue to believe that Lateef is incredibly disrespected by this fan base, because I feel like the storyline has been fading. People forget how good of a game that he played versus UCLA, because, over the bye week, everybody was talking about recruiting, they're talking about the transfer portal, they're talking about the future of this roster, the future of this coaching staff. The big storyline was the Emmett Johnson HEISMAN campaign, which of course is very well deserved, but we forget how well Lateef actually played versus the Bruins. And people made every single excuse in the book to, go back to Dylan Raiola. So, well, Dylan's still the better quarterback. They said that, we played a very bad opponent, that, anybody could have done that against UCLA. Well, that's not the case, because we've played bad opponents all season long, and we've not seen a quarterback performance like that. Okay, so again, we played Michigan State, who was not good. We threw interceptions. We played Maryland, who was not very good. We threw interceptions. People said that, we played against a bad D-line, against a bad secondary. Well, we played Maryland with a bad D-line, a bad secondary, and we threw 3 interceptions. We almost lost. So what's the narrative there? People said, well, Lateef, he was the check down master. He threw check down for check down. Well, sure he did, but he also threw some very, very tough throws on the run, sidearm. You saw his progressions, and once again, he had one of the most efficient Nebraska quarterback performances in the past decade. He did not throw an incompletion until the fourth quarter. We've not seen that all year long. Jalyn did the same thing, and he'd throw a pick in there. TJ didn't. And last but not least, people just simply say it was a fluke performance. We're not going to see it again. Well, how can you say that from a statistical standpoint when TJ Lateef has had the best 4 games in the history of a Nebraska quarterback since in the past 30 years, statistically, from arbitrary analytics? The best 4-game debut, okay, whether it was in the Akron game, whether it was against Houston Christian, USC, and UCLA, the most efficient 4-game debut, not only in the history of Nebraska football, but since 1995 in all of college football. That's a real statistic. So you can't say it's a fluke when he's backed it up time and time again. And he had a quarterback performance that we've not seen all season long. Okay, he is the first Nebraska quarterback to have 3 or more touchdowns and 0 interceptions against a Power 4 opponent in 3 years, since Casey Thompson. Dylan has played over 20 games here, has never done that. So again, I just think a lot of people are forgetting how well TJ played. They're not doing him, they're not giving him enough credit. But I want to make this very clear. He has to do it again versus Penn State. And that's been the whole storyline. He's had a great week of practice. He's going to have a great week of practice this week leading up to Penn State. And I just want to draw you back to, obviously he looked like a very unfinished product earlier in the season. He looked bad versus USC. But the improvement that he showed under 7 days running with these runs, learning the progressions, learning, the tendencies of receivers, learning the cadence, the progression they showed in 7 games going to UCLA was astronomical. Imagine the progression that he's going to show 14 days going into Penn State, 7 days going into Iowa, a whole month going to the bowl game. Okay, guys like him, they don't take a long time to progress. It's exponential growth. They hit the ground running. So TJ Lateef, I expect him to ball out versus Penn State. I expect him to ball out versus Iowa. And I expect there to be a real quarterback battle. If you don't think that's going to be the case, then you're not giving TJ a real opportunity to shine. Okay, you can be on the Dylan Riley fan club. We're all in the Dylan fan club. We all are. There's no battle. There's no war. I want to make that very clear. But TJ Lateef is a stud quarterback, and he had the best Nebraska quarterback performance of the entire season versus UCLA. You cannot dispute that. You cannot dispute that from a film standpoint or stat standpoint. You can't dispute that. If you are, you're biased toward Dylan. That's just the way it goes. So he did that in 1 game. Let's see if we can do it again versus Penn State. Again, that's a harder defense. But again, we played easy defense all year long like we did versus UCLA, and we didn't see anything like what TJ did. So I want to give him more credit. And just know, again, there's going to be some change to this offense. We're going to see more RPOs because that works. We're going to see, again, a lot more of a spread offense. We're going to see, again, these options, these zone reads. We saw a couple triple options in there. We're going to allow TJ to operate not only with his legs, but also with his arm. I also want to talk about Emmett Johnson real quickly because, again, the media team, the Nebraska social media, they've been pushing the Emmett Johnson HEISMAN campaign that he should, at the very minimum, get an invite to New York. And I told you guys the same where, Emmett Johnson, he's not going to win the Heisman. We know, again, it's a very uphill battle at this point in time, just not going to get his respect. I just want an invite, right? If Ashton Jeanty couldn't win the Heisman, Emmett's not going to win the Heisman, especially with, the way that Fernando Mendoza is playing. But, again, I just want an invite for Emmett. So that's awesome. Again, they're promoting all this Emmett Johnson stuff, but I want to make this very clear. Now the spotlight's on him. Okay, up until now, nobody nationally was really watching Emmett Johnson. Besides like some other Big Ten squads, nobody really even knew Emmett Johnson's name. But after UCLA, everybody's picking up on him. So you better believe there are going to be people who are watching Nebraska for the first time this Saturday just to watch him, to say, okay, let's see if this running back's actually legit. The spotlight is on him. He's no longer in the shadows. Emmett Johnson, everybody's expecting him to do something great. He's got to play up to it. Okay, that proves whether you're great or you're elite. When the spotlight's on you against a talented defense, Penn State's not perfect, but they got talent. Do you play up to it? We'll see. And I told you guys at the very minimum, if you guys want Emmett Johnson to get an invite to New York City, which I believe he deserves, we need 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns at the very minimum versus Penn State. At the very minimum. We got to see that again versus Iowa. If it's anything shorter than that, even if it's 100 yards, 1 touchdown, it's not good enough. If you want an invite to New York City, it's got to be a great performance because, again, everybody's watching this nationwide, and hopefully he lives up to it. But also, I want to make sure to mention this. Vote for Emmett Johnson on the Heisman website. You can vote for him and give him some love and potentially get him to New York City. Make your voice heard. All right, let's talk about some changes, not only coming to the offense, but coming to this defense. Again, we're talking about specifically the passing attack. Like, I expect the passing attack to really come alive versus Penn State. They have one of the worst secondaries, or excuse me, they have one of the worst pass rushers in America right now. So Lateef, he's going to have all day in the pocket to throw. And they do have a very talented secondary. But again, Emmett Johnson with his rushing attack is going to open up the passing attack with TJ, with his arm, with his legs. So again, I expect it to be a very complete offense. I told you guys versus UCLA, that was the most complete offensive performance we've seen all year. It looked like, Lateef, he took off the shackles of Dana Holgorsen. Like, Dana was waiting for a dual threat to just walk into the offense because, again, that it looked like there were sets that we haven't seen all season long with TJ out there. We thought the playbook was going to be, confined. It was expanded. So just know with, 14 days heading up to Penn State, again, I expect this offense to be ready to play. Now, as for the defense, that's the big storyline. That's the big concern because the defense really, that's been our weak point all year long, especially with our defensive line, with stopping the run. I mean, say what you guys want about Penn State. They have one of the best rushing attacks in America. And we know that this defensive line specifically, again, they have not gotten any better. They had a bad performance versus UCLA, couldn't stop the run, they couldn't stop the quarterback scramble. They had a really bad game versus USC, really bad game. Again, don't go down line. So listen, over this bye week, we know that Anthony Johnson's got more involved. Phil Snow's got more involved. We're going to see some new faces out there versus the Nittany Lions, whether it's Gabe Moore, whether it's Keona Davis, whether it's David Hoofkin, even a Cade Petschok. So expect more, rotation on this defensive line. As for a whole schematic change, again, it's too late in the season. But again, they've made that a very big vocal point. Like, this defensive line has to step up in order to beat them. And also, real quick, there will be a change coming to the secondary. We have a little bit of a conundrum at free safety. We know that Marcus Buford, he got benched twice this season because his downfield tackling has been horrendous. So he's gotten benched. We know that Rex Guthrie, he's been playing okay. He's been playing worse football down the stretch, and he's also banged up. So we have an issue right now, whether we stick with Rex Guthrie, who's injured and hasn't been playing well. Either we go back to Marcus Buford, who's a veteran but also hasn't been playing well, or we put in a new face like a Justin Rhett, like a Jameer Khan. So expect a rotation at free safety, a lot more new faces out there because, again, we just don't have a great option there as it stands. Real quick, going over some breakout players, what's happened throughout the bye week, some guys I expect to get some more playing time going into the rest of the season. Again, Cortez Mills at some point I think is going to get more run. Obviously, he has a great connection with TJ Lateef. I thought, he gets open. When he's on the field, he's always open, and Dylan would never find him. So hopefully Cortez can get more involved because of the receiving core. It's been very off and on this year, to say the least. Isaiah Mozee, I expect him to get more run at running back. He's played very well these past couple weeks as well, very quietly. Elijah Pritchett actually had a nice little 3 weeks. I think he's going to compound that, do well against Penn State as well, despite his ankle injury. Preston Tomoa right now is our backup left tackle. We'll see if President gets any snaps this year, but this coaching staff, they're very high on him. I'm very high on him. He's had a really good couple weeks, and he's definitely rose through the ranks as these injuries have happened on the offensive line. Gabe Moore, who we just talked about, is going to get some more run on the D-line. He's played very well. Buda Wright has been just phenomenal this season. He hasn't practiced too much because he's a veteran, because he's been dealing with these blood clots, but just want to shout out Buda Wright because he's arguably been Nebraska's best linebacker. I mean, he's not even arguably. He's been our best linebacker, and he might be an all Big Ten guy. And also Donovan Jones. We got to give some respect to Donovan Jones. He's had a nice little 3 weeks after his horrific performance versus Minnesota. I was calling for Donnie Jones to get benched because, again, it was that bad of a performance. He was going to exploit it all year long, not only against Minnesota, but against Maryland, against Michigan State, against Michigan. These teams were literally going at Donovan, and I was telling you guys, I was like, I don't even know if Donovan can play here for the rest of the season because, again, these offenses are just going at him, and he's been so much better since then. Sometimes you kind of have to get hit on your butt. You have to fall down in order to rise, in order to get better, and that's kind of what happened with Donnie. He's had a really strong couple weeks, so I wanted to give him some credit. All right, going on to where Nebraska goes from here in these final 3 games, not only these final 2, but also going into the bye week, going into the bowl game. So listen, I think there's a misconception, and maybe I started this with TJ Lateef going out there. I told you guys there's low pressure now. If Nebraska wins out, cool. If Nebraska loses out, cool. We have a backup quarterback. I told you guys, my mindset took a complete 180 after beating UCLA. There is a lot of pressure because now we have to win out. There are no excuses because we didn't know what we were going to get from TJ. We knew that TJ was very talented, but we didn't know if TJ was going to be ready to play. TJ's ready to play. And there's already a lot of people who think he's a better quarterback than Dylan. Okay, I don't know if I'm there yet, but you can't dispute that he had the best quarterback performance of the season. Can't dispute that. So now we went from having low pressure, win out, lose out, doesn't matter, to having very high pressure because we have just as good of a quarterback out there who can win us football games. We know that for a fact. So there's pressure on him to quiet the noise, to prove himself, to prove why he should be Nebraska's quarterback going into next year. There's pressure on Emmett Johnson to live up to the expectations on national television. There's pressure on the staff to win out, to live up to their early expectations. There's pressure on a couple of these players to, step up their game, or potentially they might not be here next year. It's a high-stakes situation. Okay, and we play Penn State, who has a lot of talent. They just are coming off of a victory versus Michigan State. They're rallying around their team. They could still make a bowl game. That's going to be tough. You play Iowa. We know that's a very tough team. We've only beat them one time in the past decade. It's crazy to say that out loud. Okay, and while they've had a rough 2 weeks, they lost against Oregon and USC. We know they're talented. We know they're well coached. And then we're going to play a very good team in a bowl game, likely an SC squad, likely, Oklahoma, Texas. Okay, so I want to make this very clear to you guys. I want to make this very clear. We have got to win out. Okay, we just talked about how it's going to be a tough schedule going forward, but we've got to win out. At least these next 2 games. Penn State, Iowa, you have to win both. Okay, I'm not going to be satisfied with going 1-1. I'm definitely not going to be satisfied going 0-2. You have to go 2-0 at the very minimum. Why? Because I'm never going to make excuses for anything. Okay, I'm not going to make excuses for the injuries. I'm not going to make excuses for the storylines. I'm not going to make excuses for the coaching staff. We talked all offseason long about 9 wins, about the big breakout year 3, the big jump. Okay, and if you told me going into the year that we'd only go 8-4 or 7-5, given the fact that we won 7 games last year, that we'd only win 1 more game, that's not a big jump at all. Okay, at the very minimum, 9-3 was needed to take that big jump to prove that you've made a lot of progress. Okay. And we got dealt a great hand. Has it been perfect? No. Okay, we've had injuries. We've lost a lot of close games, but we've been dealt a really, really good hand. As good of a hand as you're ever going to get with how easy our schedule was. And with all the tight wins that we did get. Okay, we haven't won tight games in the past. We got lucky a little bit this season. So you have to adjust. Okay, it's not great that Dylan's out. It's not great that, a couple of our offensive linemen are out. Gunnar Gatula, Teddy Prohaska. It's not great that we're banged up on defense. None of it's great. But you have to adjust because the best teams, they don't make excuses. Regardless. Okay, if you have an expectation for yourself going into the season, 9-3, live up to it. Doesn't matter. Live up to it. So you got to go all in on TJ Lateef, give him an opportunity to succeed. You got to be aggressive on defense. You got to dominate all three phases of the ball game against Iowa, against Penn State. You got to take the ball away. You got to win the tight moments. You got to finish strong. You got to go back to your motto, gritty over pretty. Gritty over pretty. Gritty over pretty. But what I'm not going to do here is I'm not going to sit here after we maybe lose to Penn State or maybe lose to Iowa and say, well, we had a backup quarterback out there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Nationally, nobody cares. Everybody's dealing with injuries. Nobody cares. Matt Rule said 9-3. I'm holding him to that. And he understands he got to go 9-3. He understands that. So I'm not speaking that into existence. He already knows that. So we got to go all in. We got to go 9-3, and hopefully we make a really, really good bowl game. And that's going to impact everything. You go 9-3, it might not seem like a lot, but it is. Okay, it impacts recruiting, impacts the portal, impacts boosters. It impacts the national perception of this program. It impacts our hype going into next year. We're going to be preseason ranked. You got to win out. And you got to win the bowl game as well, potentially get 2 double-digit wins. So again, I'm rooting for TJ, rooting for Emmett. I'm hoping TJ proves these people wrong, proves he should be our quarterback next year. He's already took a nice step in that direction, but you got to do it again. Emmett Johnson, hoping that he can prove that why he should be in New York City as a Heisman finalist. And also want to make this very clear to end the video. Enjoy this. Enjoy our game versus Penn State. Enjoy our game versus Iowa. We only have 2 more weeks of regular season college football. Can you believe that? It is flew by. It is flew by. And I tell you guys this almost every single week. Go back to the way you were feeling in February, the way you were feeling in May, the way you were feeling even in July. You would have done anything to watch Nebraska football play. You would have done anything to watch any college football game. And the season is almost over. So relish the moment. If we lose, we lose. If we win, we win. But at the end of the day, just relish that we're playing college football. You're getting to watch your favorite team play because, again, in a span of 2 weeks, it will be over. We'll have 1 more bowl game, and then we'll be back to the dreaded offseason. So enjoy it. Okay? Enjoy it. It's almost gone, man. But I'll tell you right now, it has been an honor, a privilege, and it's been very fun to cover it with you guys on the channel. And guess what? Again, we're not slowing down, man. We're getting so close to 15K. This is the hardest working channel on YouTube. We post 2 videos a day in the season. We post 1-2 videos every single day. It's crazy, man. I'm not slowing down, though. Transport season is going to be crazy, and I'm excited to cover it with you guys. Again, all gas, no brakes. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts down below about the bye week expectations going to Penn State, going to Iowa. Let me know your thoughts down below about Emmett, about TJ, about the defense. Hey, if you made this far, just do hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go grad, go out and roll, and I'll see you in the next one.